The story of life's monsters does not begin with thunder, or roars, or the pounding footsteps of giant reptiles. It begins quietly, underwater, in the soft, shadowy seas of more than 500 million years ago. The Cambrian period was a time when Earth itself seemed to exhale, filling the oceans with new shapes, new colors, and new hungers. For billions of years before, life had been simple. Bacteria, algae, tiny creatures floating without much motion. But then, as if the world grew suddenly restless, the seas filled with animals that had teeth, claws, eyes, and armor. The Cambrian explosion, as paleontologists call it, is the moment when life's monsters were born. Imagine lowering yourself into those ancient seas. There is no grass, no trees, no birds overhead. The continents are barren rock, silent and windswept. But in the oceans, everything is alive, in dazzling variety. The water is thick with drifting trilobites, armored creatures with segmented bodies and hard exoskeletons. Their fossils, found by the millions in shale and limestone, would one day be scattered across mountains in Canada, Morocco, and China, showing us that these seas were once everywhere. And among them moved one of the earliest great predators, Anomalocaris. Its name means strange shrimp, but to the creatures of its time, it was nothing short of a monster, nearly a meter-long gigantic compared to most Cambrian life. It had large, compound eyes, sharp grasping appendages, and a circular mouth lined with plates that rotated like a grinding wheel. Imagine its movements, graceful, almost alien. Fins rippling down its sides as it cruised through the water, scanning for prey. Scientists once thought Anomalocaris was 3 separate animals. Its body mistaken for a shrimp, its arms for strange jellyfish tentacles, its mouth for a pineapple-shaped sea creature. Only in the 20th century did paleontologists realize it was one whole animal, one of the first apex predators Earth had ever seen. But the Cambrian seas held more than hunters. There were spiny, hallucinogenic tiny worm-like creatures walking on rows of stick-like legs, their backs covered in spikes. For decades, scientists reconstructed them upside down, thinking their spikes were legs and their legs were tentacles. Only with modern electron microscopy did we realize the truth. Then there was Opabinia, with 5 eyes and a long, flexible proboscis tipped with a claw. Fossil evidence from the Burgess Shale in Canada shows its strange form perfectly preserved, its 5 eyes staring forever from black shale. To us, it looks like something from a dream or a nightmare. But in those seas it was real, hunting for worms in the sediment. The Cambrian monsters were small compared to the dinosaurs that would follow hundreds of millions of years later. Yet in their world, they were giants. To a trilobite only a few centimeters long, an Anomalocaris was as terrifying as a lion is to a gazelle. And to us, their forms seemed stranger than anything our myths ever imagined, proving that Earth's creativity has always outstripped our imagination. Archaeological evidence is not limited to bones and teeth. In shale beds, paleontologists have found the impressions of soft bodies, delicate traces of jellyfish-like creatures, and the tracks of trilobites crawling across the seafloor. These are the whispers of a world long gone. Picture it. You are floating, weightless, in warm Cambrian waters. Sunlight filters down in beams. Clouds of plankton drift like dust motes in air. Then sudden motion. A shadow slips past. A shimmer of fins. Dozens of trilobites scatter, their legs churning frantically, and behind them, the wide mouth of Anomalocaris opens like a flower in reverse. Plates turning inward to seize, to grind, to consume. The sea is alive with motion, but it is also silent, soft, almost dreamlike. There is no roar here, no sound of hooves or wings, only the gentle hiss of water and the ripple of fins. It is the first theater of predators and prey, played out in silence. And as you drift, eyelids heavy, you realize these were the first monsters, long before dragons, long before myths, long before humans stood to tell stories by firelight. Monsters made of water and light, captured forever in stone. The Cambrian seas breathe around you, and slowly you drift with them into the next age. The Cambrian age faded slowly, like the ebbing of a tide. Creatures that once seemed so strange Anomalocaris with its grasping arms. Trilobites with their armored shells continued to thrive. But they were no longer alone. The seas deepened in mystery. We step now into the Ordovician period, around 485 million years ago. The continents were scattered, clustered mostly near the southern hemisphere. The world's oceans were warm, shallow, and vast, stretching farther than the eye could ever see. They were full of light and life, and among that life, monsters grew larger. It was here that one of the most formidable of the early predators appeared, the nautiloid cephalopods. Imagine, if you can, a creature that looked like a squid, but with its soft body protected inside a long, tapering shell. Some of these Ordovician cephalopods stretched over 6 meters in length, making them the first true giants of Earth's oceans. Their fossils are found across North America and Europe, in limestone cliffs that once were seabeds. Long, straight shells like stone spears, sometimes over 2 meters long, record their silent presence. These were the first animals to dominate the seas, not just in size, but in intelligence. Cephalopods even today, like octopuses and squids, are remarkable for their problem-solving and learning abilities. In the Ordovician, their ancestors may already have been clever hunters, moving with precision, controlling their buoyancy by pumping gases within their shells. Close your eyes and picture the scene. The clear waters of an Ordovician sea, sunlight pouring through like golden shafts. Small fish-like creatures, jawless and armored, dart back and forth in schools, their bodies shining silver. Trilobites creep along the seafloor, grazing on algae, and above them glides a shadow long, straight, slow-moving, yet relentless. The nautilide's many tentacles trail like drifting threads, reaching, exploring. A sudden movement, and the tentacles snap tight, drawing prey toward a sharp beak hidden beneath the shell's base. For smaller creatures, this was terror itself. To us, it feels like a dreamer monster from myth, silent and watchful, drifting endlessly across ancient seas. But the Ordovician was not a world of predators alone. It was a time of enormous diversity. Coral reefs began to grow for the first time, building underwater cities where countless small creatures could find shelter. Graptolites, delicate colonial animals that looked like tiny saw blades floated through the water in vast numbers, leaving behind fossils like black scratches in shale. Brachiopods, creatures with two shells that resembled clams, covered the seabeds by the millions, and among them moved the first vertebrate creatures with a backbone, though still without jaws. They were small, armored fish-like animals, their bodies plated with bone, their mouths little more than round openings. From these simple, jawless swimmers would eventually rise sharks, bony fish, reptiles, and even us. The fossils of these creatures whisper to us from stone. In regions like the Ordovician limestone of Wales, Canada's famous sedimentary rocks, and Morocco's fossil beds, paleontologists have traced not only the shells of nautilides but the burrows of worms, the trails of trilobites, even the faint outlines of soft-bodied creatures. These are records of seas so old that mountains have risen from them and eroded away again. Yet their story remains, layer upon layer. What is most surprising about the Ordovician is not just the monsters, but the balance. This was one of the first true ecosystems reefs. Plankton blooms, predators, grazers, scavengers, all bound together in a living web. The seas hummed with life in a way Earth had never seen before. And yet, time is never still. At the end of the Ordovician, the world would face one of the first great extinctions. A sudden ice age lowered sea levels, drained shallow habitats, and wiped away nearly 85% of marine species. But for now, in this moment, the seas are alive, glowing with creatures that drift and hunt. The nautiloid glides on, tentacles brushing against the current. Its long shell glimmers faintly in the filtered light. Smaller fish scatter at its passing. Trilobites freeze, pressing flat against the seabed, and then silence again, only the steady pulse of the sea. The monsters of the Ordovician do not roar. They do not thunder across the earth. They whisper, softly, endlessly, in the quiet breath of water. And you, drifting in that silence, let your own breathing match their slow, steady, endless. The giants of the sea fade back into shadow as the story of monsters continues. The Ordovician seas slowly shifted into silence, ending with a great dying. Yet life returned. It always does. The Devonian period, beginning around 419 million years ago, is sometimes called the Age of Fishes. It was here, in the warm oceans and winding estuaries, that some of Earth's most astonishing monsters took shape. Close your eyes. Imagine the sea once more. The water is green with plankton, shallows glowing in shifting sunlight. Schools of early bony fish flush silver as they scatter in tight formations. But beyond them drifts a shape bigger, heavier, and far more terrifying. This was Dunkleosteus, one of the largest predators ever to swim in prehistoric waters. A giant placoderm, it grew more than 6 meters long, its body encased in plates of thick bone. Unlike the sleek, graceful sharks that would later rule the oceans, Dunkleosteus was armored like a tank. Its head and thorax were covered in interlocking shields, giving it the appearance of a knight in ancient steel. And its mouth was a weapon like no other. Instead of teeth, Dunkleosteus had sharp, bony plates that formed into a beak-like set of shears. With incredible speed, it could open and close its jaws, creating suction to pull prey inward. Studies of fossil skull mechanics suggest that Dunkleosteus could generate a bite force of over 4,000 pounds per square inch, strong enough to cut through bone and shell. Think of it, a slow, looming shadow, armored, relentless, its jaws snapping shut with bone-crushing precision. Trilobites, ammonites, even other large fish could not withstand it. In a world where predators were growing in size and strength, Dunkleosteus was king. Its fossils have been uncovered in Cleveland, Ohio, Morocco, and Poland, preserved in ancient seabeds. Sometimes they appear as great armored skulls, jaws frozen open, as if the monster still waits for prey to pass. No complete body has ever been found, but paleontologists reconstruct it with a powerful, muscular tail, like that of modern fish, propelling it through the seas. Around Dunkleosteus swam the first true sharks. They were smaller then, slender-bodied, with cartilage skeletons. Some species grew no larger than a modern trout, but they carried the blueprint for predators that would one day dominate the oceans, long after placoderms vanished. The Devonian seas also introduced something stranger still, the first reefs, teeming with coral, sponges, and shelled creatures. Crinoids waved their feathery arms in the current. Ammonites, with their coiled shells, drifted like living spirals, some growing to the size of cartwheels. Early lungfish lurked in estuaries, their fins slowly becoming stronger, edging them closer to the idea of land. And yet, it was Dunkleosteus that haunted these waters like a shadow of inevitability. Paleontologists often remark on its eyes large, set forward, giving it binocular vision. It could track prey with precision, reading movement, sensing opportunity. Imagine, if you will, being a small armored fish, grazing peacefully on algae at the seafloor. The water darkens, a shape looms, the jaws open wider than your entire body, and in a flash, bone crushes bone. Silence follows. But for all its dominance, Dunkleosteus, too, would fade. By the end of the Devonian, another extinction swept the seas. Coral reefs collapsed. Oxygen in the oceans dwindled. Entire lineages of placoderms, Dunkleosteus among them, disappeared forever. The armored giants were gone. Still, their story lingers in stone. Their skulls stare from museum shelves, bony jaws locked mid-bite, as if they could still crush shells after 360 million years. And when we gaze at them, we see not just a monster, but a memory of power, of hunger, of an ocean once ruled by armor. The Devonian seas close gently around you, fading into quiet. The armored beasts vanish into shadow, and a new world rises beyond. The seas had been Earth's stage for hundreds of millions of years. Every predator, every grazer, every monster that had lived until now had been bound by water. But the Devonian did not end with Dunkleosteus alone. It whispered of something new, something daring the first creatures that would rise from the sea and test the air above. It is here that we meet Tiktaalik, one of the most extraordinary fossils ever discovered. In 2004, on Ellesmere Island in the Canadian Arctic, paleontologists uncovered its remains in ancient Devonian rock. At first glance, it looked like a fish, scales, fins, and gills still intact. But then came the surprise. Tiktaalik's fins contained bone structures that could support weight. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. They were not legs yet, but they were more than fins. They were tools for pushing against the bottom, for lifting itself upward, for resting in shallow waters that bordered the land. Tiktaalik, living about 375 million years ago, was neither fully fish nor fully amphibian. It was something in between, a bridge across the divide. Its flat skull resembled a crocodile's. Its eyes set high so it could peek above water. It had both gills and lungs, meaning it could breathe into worlds. Its body was built for exploration, for the first hesitant steps onto mudflats and stream banks. Close your eyes and picture it. A warm Devonian swamp. Reeds swaying, dragonflies buzzing. The water is shallow, sunlit, its bottom soft with silt. Tiktaalik rests there, body pressed against the mud. With a slow motion, it pushes its fins outward, lifting its head to take a gulp of air. Then it settles again, half in water, half on land. It does not yet walk, but the idea of walking has begun. The discovery of Tiktaalik stunned the scientific world. For decades, paleontologists searched for fossils that could explain how vertebrates moved from water to land. Here it was, a creature perfectly poised between worlds. Its very existence confirmed predictions made from studying earlier fossils like Eusthenopteran and later ones like Acanthostega. It was a missing chapter, finally revealed. And this step mattered, for with it began the long story of land vertebrates, the amphibians, the reptiles, the mammals, the birds. Without Tiktaalik and its kind, there would be no dinosaurs, no mammoths, no humans. Every step you take, Every breath you draw on land is a quiet echo of that ancient fish lifting itself into air. But the Devonian swamps held more. Early forests of giant ferns and club mosses rose along rivers. Insects grew larger than a human hand, their wings whispering as they drifted through heavy air. The air itself was changing, oxygen levels creeping upward, making land more hospitable to pioneers like Tiktaalik. Imagine, for a moment, being there. You crouch at the water's edge, mud cool beneath your palms. The swamp is quiet, save for the buzzing of dragonflies and the ripple of water against reeds. Then, just before you, the surface breaks. A flat head rises, eyes blinking in sunlight. It exhales with a faint hiss, then lowers again. Tiktaalik, one of the first monsters to claim both worlds. In museums today, its fossil is displayed with reverence. Its bones are not just remnants of a single creature, but a blueprint, a moment when nature dared to reach beyond its boundaries. Scientists sometimes call it a fishapod, a playful name. Yet it carries a weight of history. Tiktaalik did not walk far. It did not conquer land in its lifetime, but it opened a door. Through that door would come creatures more confident, more adapted, with stronger limbs and sturdier lungs. And in time, they would stride far from the water, filling forests and plains, breathing freely beneath open skies. But for now, in the Devonian twilight, Tiktaalik rests in silence, half in water, half on land. A quiet pioneer of worlds to come. The Devonian swamps deepened and darkened, forests rising higher, roots digging deeper into the soil. And as time flowed forward, Earth entered the Carboniferous period, beginning about 359 million years ago. This was an age of swamps and forests, so vast that they would one day become the coal seams we mine today. But in that ancient world, before the fall of great reptiles, before even the first dinosaurs, another kind of monster ruled. It was not a predator with bone-crushing jaws like Dunkleosteus, nor a pioneer like Tiktaalik. These were creatures of air and soil insects and arthropods, swollen to impossible size. The Carboniferous was a time when oxygen levels in Earth's atmosphere reached astonishing heights, up to 35%, compared to today's 21%. Every breath carried more life, every lungful held more fire. With oxygen so rich, even creatures that breathed through simple tubes could grow far larger than in our modern world. And they did. Picture a dragonfly, delicate, shimmering, wings beating with a whisper. Now stretch it. In the Carboniferous, dragonflies like Meganeura grew, wingspans over 70 centimeters, nearly the width of a human arm span. They soared above swamps like silent kites, their compound eyes scanning for prey. Fossils of Meganeura, discovered in France in the 19th century, show the fine veins of their wings preserved in stone, a delicate memory of a giant that once filled the sky. On the forest floor crawled Arthropleura, a millipede-like giant that could reach lengths of 2 1.5 meters. Imagine walking along a dim, fern-filled path and hearing the faint rustle of countless legs brushing against leaves. Its armored segments glistened as it slid over damp earth, feeding not on flesh, but on the thick carpet of decaying plants. Its tracks, preserved in fossilized mud, have been found across Europe and North America long, winding grooves that whisper of a creature that once owned the forest floor. Other giants moved in these forests too. Scorpions the size of dogs, called pulmonoscorpius, hunted in the undergrowth. Their fossils, unearthed in Scotland, tell of predators that once waited in silence. Pincers raised, tails arched. Even common insects grew massive. Cockroaches as long as a child's hand scuttled beneath rotting logs. The Carboniferous world was not quiet, it buzzed, clicked, and skittered with life in forms too large for us to imagine outside of nightmares or myths. And yet, there was no roar, no thunder, no violence of giants. These monsters lived in a world of damp heat, shadows, and endless green. The forests stretched in every direction, filled with towering club mosses that grew like trees, some over 30 meters tall. Ferns with fronds the length of a man waved softly in the wind. The air was heavy, warm, dense with the smell of water and growth. Close your eyes and step into that forest. The ground is soft, springing beneath your feet, a thick bed of moss and peat. Shafts of sunlight pierce the canopy, illuminating drifting motes of mist. Then a shadow passes, wings wide as a hawk's. The form of Meganeura glides above you, its wings whispering as it hunts. At your feet, a ripple of movement Pleura, its many legs carrying it past in silence. You feel the ground tremble faintly with its weight. The world is alive, strange, immense. The fossils of this age tell us much. The coal beds of Britain, Germany, and the United States preserve leaves, bark, and insect wings pressed flat, as if trapped in time. Archaeologists and paleontologists, working together, have studied not only these remains, but also the chemical traces of ancient oxygen trapped within rock. These reveal the secret of gigantism, that the very air of the Carboniferous gave breath to monsters of the forest and sky. But even this age would end, as oxygen levels shifted and climates changed. The giants of the Carboniferous shrank. Meganeura disappeared. Pleura vanished. Their forms would never return, for the air itself had changed against them. And so the forests, once filled with wingbeats and countless feet, grew quieter. But if you lean close to the stones, if you run your fingers across the pressed wings of a Meganeura fossil, you can still imagine its huge eyes reflecting swamp light, wings spreading like sails, lifting into heavy, oxygen-rich air. The monsters of the Carboniferous were not roaring predators, but whispers of air, rustles of leaves, 1,000 legs in motion. And as you sink deeper into their world, the forest closes gently around you, lulling you with its endless green hush. The forests of the Carboniferous did not belong to insects alone. Beneath the towering club mosses, amid the damp ferns and moss-choked ground, other forms crept forward from the water creatures heavier, stranger, with bodies built for both land and swamp. These were the amphibians, the true titans of the forest floor. Close your eyes. Imagine a still pond, dark and quiet under the canopy. Dragonflies drift above it, wings glinting in weak light. Ripples stir the surface, widening slowly, and then something emerges. A head broad and flat, eyes bulging on top, jaws wide as a crocodile's. The creature heaves itself forward on stubby, powerful limbs. This was Eriops, one of the great amphibians of the Carboniferous, a monster nearly 2 meters long, its body thick with muscle, its skin slick and glistening with moisture. Eriops and its kin were not delicate like modern frogs or salamanders. They were hulking ambush predators, their teeth sharp and conical, perfect for gripping slippery prey. Fossil evidence from Texas and New Mexico shows skulls over 1/2 meter wide, jaws locked in a permanent crocodilian grin. When they opened their mouths, the sound would not have been a roar, but the wet, sucking gasp of a swamp hunter breaking the surface. And Eriops was not alone. There was Diplodocus, with its extraordinary boomerang-shaped skull. Its wide, flat head may have helped it steer through water, or confuse predators into thinking it was larger than it really was. Fossils of Diplodocus, found in North America, show their skulls preserved like strange, delicate kites pressed into stone. Other amphibians, some more slender, some snake-like, spread through the swamps. They breathed air through primitive lungs, but they still needed water rivers, ponds, wetlands to lay their eggs. In this way, the Carboniferous swamps tied them tightly to their world of damp shadows. Yet even as the amphibians grew, something else stirred, something small at first, but destined to change the future forever. Among the roots of ancient trees, paleontologists have discovered the fossils of the earliest reptiles, dating back over 310 million years. Unlike amphibians, reptiles laid eggs with tough shells, protecting them from drying out. This single adaptation freed them from the constant pull of water. For the first time, vertebrates could live fully on land, far from ponds and streams. One such creature was Hylonomus, a small lizard-like reptile no longer than your hand. Its fossils, found inside the hollow stumps of fossilized trees in Nova Scotia, Canada, reveal the story of a creature that lived and died in the shadows of giants. Hylonomus fed on insects, perhaps even the young of giant cockroaches, and scurried among the roots while massive amphibians prowled nearby. It is a quiet moment in history, but profound, for from such small reptiles would eventually rise the great lines of evolution: dinosaurs, birds, mammals, humans. The Carboniferous swamp held the seeds of futures it could never imagine. Now breathe with the forest. The air is thick, rich with oxygen, heavy with dampness. You hear the faint hiss of Meganeura's wings, the rustle of Arthroplura's countless legs, the ripple of water as Eriops slides beneath, waiting in stillness. Then, almost unseen, Hylonomus darts across a route, quick as a whisper, vanishing into shadow. The fossils of these swamps are preserved in coal seams and sandstone, silent libraries of life. In Nova Scotia, fossilized stumps still stand like broken pillars, their interiors holding the bones of the world's first reptiles. In Texas and Europe, skulls of giant amphibians rest in museum drawers, their wide jaws frozen mid-snarl. And in those bones lies the memory of a world where forests were alive with monsters, not roaring giants, but damp, slow, watchful hunters. The Carboniferous was a place of transition. Amphibians ruled the swamps. Reptiles first claimed the dry ground, and insects still filled the skies with whispers of impossible size. Together, they wove a tapestry of life that would echo for millions of years to come. As you sink into this world, let the air grow heavy, the ground soft, the swamp quiet. Hear the soft splash of Eriops as it vanishes beneath the water. Imagine the quick scuttle of Hylonomus, gone before your eyes can focus. And in that stillness, the swamp closes around you green, hushed, timeless. The Carboniferous forests, so lush and oxygen-rich, began to fade. Climate shifted, swamps retreated, the air grew drier, the ground harder, and the dominance of giant amphibians slowly waned. The stage was set for something new, something bold creatures that no longer needed damp shadows, but could stride across sun-baked earth. This was the Permian period, beginning around 299 million years ago, an age when reptiles rose to power and monsters of new forms appeared. Among them was one of the most iconic prehistoric predators of all, Dimetrodon. Close your eyes. Imagine a creature nearly 3 meters long, its sprawling legs carrying a heavy, muscular body across a dry plain. Its head is large, with powerful jaws lined with sharp, serrated teeth. But what captures your gaze is not its teeth, it is the great sail rising from its back, a fan of elongated spines connected by skin. Taller than the animal itself, fossils of Dimetrodon, discovered across North America and Europe, reveal that sail in exquisite detail. Paleontologists debate its purpose. Some believe it was used for thermoregulation, absorbing heat from the morning sun, releasing it during midday, helping the animal control its body temperature in a world where days were hot and nights could be cold. Others suggest it was a display, a flag of intimidation or courtship, a way to stand out in a land of rivals. Dimetrodon lived long before the dinosaurs. It was not a dinosaur at all, but a synapsid, a distant ancestor of mammals. That means, strange though it seems, we are more closely related to Dimetrodon than to any dinosaur. Its bones carry the beginnings of traits that would one day lead, through deep time, to us. But the Permian was not ruled by Dimetrodon alone. There was Edaphosaurus, a plant-eating relative with its own sail, but smaller teeth, adapted not for flesh but for chewing roots and tough vegetation. Fossils of Edaphosaurus, found in Texas, show sails covered in strange crossbars of bone, perhaps strengthening the structure or giving it a unique appearance. Imagine them grazing in groups, sails rising like flags across a prehistoric field. And then there was Gorgonops, a predator of the late Permian, belonging to the therapsids sometimes called mammal-like reptiles. With saber-like canines and a muscular build, Gorgonops grew up to 4 meters long. Its fossils, discovered in South Africa and Russia, show an animal both reptilian and mammalian, its bones carrying hints of warm-bloodedness, its gait more upright, its skull shaped for powerful bites. These were monsters unlike any before. Where amphibians had been bound to swamps, the Permian creatures strode across plains, deserts, and scrublands. They were adapted to dryness, to open landscapes where water was scarce and survival depended on endurance. The fossils tell us of their world. Red sandstones in Texas preserve the tracks of Dimetrodon, its claws scratching against ancient earth. In the Karoo Basin of South Africa, entire bone beds hold the remains of therapsids, creatures that once roamed in herds or packs. Archaeological studies of isotopes in their bones suggest that some may have been warm-blooded, their metabolisms already edging toward mammalian speed. Picture it now, a Permian morning. The sun rises over a barren plain, heating stone and dust. Dimetrodon sprawls on a rock, sail tilted toward the light, absorbing warmth. In the distance, a herd of Edaphosaurus grazes quietly, their sails rising and falling like a forest of banners. And then a shadow moves among them. A Gorgonops, muscles tense, canines glinting, its eyes lock on prey. The air is dry, the ground hard, the struggle for life played out under a pitiless sky. The Permian was a world of strange beauty, but it was also unstable. Climate swung between extremes. Deserts expanded. Oxygen levels fluctuated. Yet these reptiles and therapsids thrived, adapting to a harsher earth, setting the stage for all that would follow. And then, suddenly, it ended. The Permian closed with the greatest extinction in Earth's history, the Great Dying, when nearly 90% of marine species and 70% of land species vanished. Volcanic eruptions in Siberia poisoned the air, darkened the skies, and turned oceans acidic. The forests thinned to silence. Dimetrodon, Edaphosaurus, Gorgonops all gone. But for a time, before the end, the Permian plains rang with their presence. Their bones remain, scattered across the world, their sails frozen in stone, their skulls locked mid-snarl. And through them we remember a time when monsters first rose fully onto land, ruling it with sails and teeth beneath an unforgiving sun. Life had reached a triumph in the Permian, Reptiles with sails basked beneath harsh suns. Gorgonops prowled with saber-like canines. Insects skittered through dry forests. The seas, too, were full of ammonites, brachiopods, and coral reefs thriving in warm shallows. And then the world began to unravel. It happened about 250 million years ago, and paleontologists call it simply the Great Dying. It was the most catastrophic extinction event in Earth's history. Fossil records tell the story with chilling clarity. Before the boundary, rocks are filled with different shells, teeth, tracks, plants pressed into stone. Above it, the record is almost empty. Nearly 90% of marine species vanished. 70% of land vertebrates disappeared. Whole ecosystems collapsed. Forests withered. Reefs crumbled. It was as if the earth itself drew in a breath and held it, leaving silence. What caused such devastation? The evidence points to massive volcanic eruptions in Siberia, known today as the Siberian Traps, for nearly 1,000,000 years. Colossal lava flows spread across what is now Russia, covering an area larger than modern-day Europe. These eruptions released unimaginable amounts of carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere, heating the planet. Geological evidence layers of ash, spikes in carbon isotopes. Mercury deposits confirms the scale. Oceans warmed until their oxygen dissolved away. Anoxic waters, black and poisonous, spread across the seafloor. Methane, trapped in frozen hydrates, may have bubbled to the surface, accelerating the greenhouse effect. On land, acid rain fell, stripping leaves from plants, poisoning rivers. Imagine the seas of that time. Once clear and alive with coral reefs, they grew dark, stagnant, lifeless. Fish gasped at the surface, then sank. Trilobites, which had survived for nearly 270 million years, finally disappeared forever. Coral reefs, which had flourished since the Ordovician, collapsed into barren rubble. On land, forests thinned to nothing. The great sail-backed reptiles were gone. The mighty Gorgonops line ended abruptly. Insects, the survivors of so many earlier extinctions, suffered their first and only mass decline. Whole ecosystems blinked out. For perhaps 10 million years after, the Earth was a wasteland. Fossil evidence from the early Triassic shows low diversity. Monotonous communities of hardy survivors, lycopsid plants clinging to riverbanks, small burrowing reptiles eking out an existence. The air was hot, the soils dry, the seas unstable. And yet, even in this devastation, some life endured. Small reptiles of the synapsid-line creatures, like Lystrosaurus, somehow survived. Fossils of Lystrosaurus are found across Africa, Asia, and Antarctica, showing that this squat, tusked herbivore spread across much of the Earth after the extinction. Imagine herds of them waddling across barren plains, rooting at sparse vegetation, survivors in a world of emptiness. In time, new reptiles would rise. Archosaurus crocodile and dinosaur, Ancestors would find their chance in the silence left behind. But for a long, long while, Earth was still. Close your eyes and picture it. A plain under a red sun, barren except for low scrub. The ground is cracked. The air is heavy, hot. In the distance, a few Lystosaurus shuffle slowly, tusks scraping at roots. Around them, there is no birdsong, no insects humming, no shadow of great hunters. Only silence. The great dying reminds us that monsters are not always creatures. Sometimes the monster is the earth itself, the fire in its crust, the gases in its air, the poison in its waters. And yet, it also reminds us of resilience. For though most perished, some endured, and in that endurance, the story continued. The earth was scarred, but not empty. Out of this silence, new forms would rise. The Triassic dawn waited, and with it, the first dinosaurs. The Permian had ended in fire, ash, and silence. For millions of years afterward, the earth seemed to hesitate, struggling to recover. Forests regrew only in patches. Oceans slowly returned to clarity. Life, once rich with diversity, was thin, fragile, uncertain. And then, in the wake of loss, came the survivors. The Triassic period had begun around 250 million years ago. It was here, in this world of resilience, that the first true dinosaurs appeared. At first, they were small, light, and quick creatures hardly resembling the colossal giants we imagine when we hear the word dinosaur. Yet they carried within them the potential for greatness. One of the earliest and most iconic was Coelophysis. Fossils discovered in the American Southwest, particularly at Ghost Ranch in New Mexico, tell us of its form. Hundreds of skeletons, some complete, lie preserved in stone, an entire community, frozen by time. From these bones, paleontologists have reconstructed a slender, graceful predator. Coelophysis was about 3 meters long, but lightly built, weighing perhaps only 15 to 20 kilograms. Its neck was long, its head narrow, its jaws lined with sharp teeth perfect for seizing small prey. Its legs were built for speed, allowing it to dart across Triassic floodplains with startling agility. And unlike the sprawling gait of earlier reptiles, Coelophysis stood upright, balancing on 2 legs. Its tail stretched behind like a counterweight. Imagine a Triassic morning. The land is strange low forests of cycads and ginkgos, rivers winding through scrubby plains, skies hazy with heat. Across this landscape, a pack of Coelophysis moves silently. Their eyes are keen, scanning for insects, lizards, or perhaps young reptiles unwary in the sun. The Ghost Ranch fossils reveal more than bones. They tell of behavior. Some skeletons are small, others large, suggesting different age groups preserved together. This may mean Coelophysis hunted in groups, or at least gathered in numbers. Scientists also debate whether some individuals were cannibalistic, feeding on smaller members of their kind during harsh times. The evidence is uncertain, But the possibility lingers. Life was still precarious, and survival often demanded harsh choices. But Coelophysis was not alone. The Triassic world was full of experimentation. Crocodile-like archosaurs prowled riversides. Other small dinosaurs, such as Herrerasaurus in South America, grew larger and more robust, testing different body plans. Pterosaurs, the first flying reptiles, stretched their wings against Triassic skies. Mammal ancestors, no longer dominant, shrank into smaller forms, clinging to shadows while reptiles expanded into the light. The fossils of Coelophysis capture this transition beautifully. Its bones show a creature light and hollow, closer in build to birds than to the heavy reptiles of the past. In this, it was a sign of things to come, a whisper of the great age of dinosaurs that would follow. Close your eyes and picture it. You stand at the edge of a Triassic river. The air is warm, buzzing faintly with insect life. A rustle in the reeds catches your attention. Then swift movement. A Coelophysis darts into view, head jerking, tail balancing, eyes sharp. Its skin glistens, perhaps striped or mottled, blending with the shadows. For a moment it watches you, still and poised. Then, with a sudden leap, it vanishes into the brush, leaving only silence. The Triassic was not yet a land of giants. It was a land of beginnings, of small, agile predators carving out survival in a recovering world. Coelophysis, with its speed and grace, was among the first to rise. From the bones at Ghost Ranch, preserved in red stone, we know them still. The first true dinosaurs, small, fragile, fierce, monsters not of size, but of persistence. And in their steps, the future waited. The Triassic dawn had given rise to dinosaurs on land. But in the seas, another story was unfolding. As rivers fed into shallow coasts and deep basins, new monsters evolved to dominate the oceans. By the time the Jurassic period began, about 201 million years ago, the seas were alive again with creatures vast, graceful, and terrifying. Two of the most extraordinary were the ichthyosaurs and the plesiosaurs. The dolphin of the deep, ichthyosaurs. Fossils tell us that ichthyosaurs were among the most perfectly adapted marine reptiles in history. Though descended from land dwellers, they evolved into shapes eerily similar to modern dolphins. Streamlined bodies, powerful tails, and long, pointed snouts made them fast and efficient hunters. Some species were small, less than 2 meters long. Others, like Shonosaurus, reached more than 21 meters, rivaling modern whales in size. In Nevada's Shoshone Mountains, paleontologists uncovered the remains of dozens of Shonosaurus, an ancient graveyard of marine giants. Their fossils, preserved in limestone that was once seabed, show enormous ribs arcing like cathedral windows, jaws stretching wide enough to swallow a human whole. Imagine swimming in those seas. The water is blue-green, sunlight filtering into glowing beams. Suddenly, a shadow passes above. A vast body glides effortlessly, tail beating side to side. Its jaws snap shut on a school of fish, scattering silver scales like sparks of light. The ichthyosaur does not linger, it vanishes into the depths. A whisper of power and silence. The elegance of terror. Plesiosaurs. If ichthyosaurs were built for speed, plesiosaurs were built for precision. Their bodies were broad, with four strong flippers beating like wings underwater. Some, like Elasmosaurus, had impossibly long necks up to 7 meters that stretched like serpents, allowing them to sneak up on shoals of fish. Others, like Kronosaurus, had short, thick necks and massive skulls armed with teeth like knives. The first plesiosaur fossils were discovered in the early 19th century by Mary Onning, a pioneering fossil hunter on the cliffs of Lyme Regis in England. She uncovered skeletons with long necks and paddle-like limbs, shocking the scientific world. Too many at the time. They looked like sea dragons, proof that myths had walked the earth. Picture them in a quiet Jurassic Bay, the water calm, rippling against rocky shores. Then, without sound, a plesiosaur's head breaks the surface, eyes glinting, nostrils flaring. Its long neck curves like a question mark before sinking back beneath the waves. Beneath the surface, its flippers beat rhythmically, carrying it with grace and menace. A world of giants. The Jurassic seas did not belong to reptiles alone. Ammonite coil-shelled relatives of squid drifted in spirals, some as large as wagon wheels. Belemnites, with sleek bullet-shaped shells, darted like prehistoric squid. Sharks, too, shared these waters, though smaller than the monsters to come. Fossilized ammonites are found worldwide, pressed into cliffs and beaches, their shells spiraling perfectly. Paleontologists use them to date layers of rock, time-stamps of the Jurassic seas. Imagine them in life spirals of color drifting in schools, shells glinting in shafts of light, their tentacles trailing as they pulsed through the water. And always above them, the hunters watched. An ichthyosaur streaking through shoals, a plesiosaur lunging with snapping jaws. The sea was alive with motion, silence, and death. The whisper of fossils. At Holzminden in Germany, one of the world's richest Jurassic fossil sites. Whole skeletons of ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs lie preserved in shale. Some are so well kept that even soft tissues remain fins, skin outlines, traces of their final meals inside their rib cages. In these stones, the monsters of the Jurassic still seem to swim, forever poised in mid-motion. Close your eyes now. Hear the hush of the ocean, the soft rush of water over flippers, the silence of something vast moving just out of sight. A long shadow drifts past, and for a moment you feel very small. Then, as quickly as it came, it is gone, vanishing into endless blue. The Jurassic seas were not roars or crashes. They were whispers, ripples, the soft thrum of life carried in waves. And yet, beneath that quiet, monsters moved. For hundreds of millions of years, life had ruled water and land. But the skies remained empty. No bird yet flapped its wings. No bat darted at dusk. Only insects filled the air, buzzing softly above forests and rivers. And then, in the late Triassic and Jurassic, a new kind of monster rose into the heavens, the pterosaurs, the first flyers. Pterosaurs were not birds. They were not dinosaurs either, though they were close relatives. They were a separate branch of archosaurs, evolving wings not from feathers, but from skin stretched across elongated fingers. One finger, the fourth, stretched impossibly long, supporting a leathery membrane that could expand into wings of astonishing size. The earliest pterosaurs, like Eudimorphodon, were small, about the size of crows, their wings fragile but nimble. Fossils from Italy show their delicate teeth, perfect for snapping insects from the air. But over millions of years, their lineage grew, diversifying into forms both elegant and monstrous, giants of the sky. By the late Jurassic, pterosaurs ruled the air. Some species skimmed oceans, wings stretched wide as they dove for fish. Others stalked coastlines, beaks long and sharp. And much later, in the Cretaceous, their size reached extremes. Creatures like Quetzalcoatlus with wingspans over 10 meters, taller than a giraffe when standing, rose into the air with power and grace. Fossil bones found in Texas reveal a creature so vast that, for decades, scientists debated how it could even fly. Recent studies suggest it launched with explosive strength from all four limbs, vaulting into the sky before catching thermals to glide for kilometers. Imagine looking up from a Jurassic beach. The sun glitters on the waves, and then, against the sky, a vast shadow passes. Its wings beat slowly, air rushing with each push. Its head tilts, long beak glinting, eyes sharp as it scans below. It drifts effortlessly, circling, before folding its wings and diving in silence toward the surf. A world above. The skies of the Mesozoic were filled with more than just giants. Small pterosaurs darted like swallows, catching insects mid-flight. Others perched on cliffs, their wings folded into strange, leathery cloaks. Some had crests rising from their heads, like sails of bone and skin. Pteranodon, with its backward sweeping crest, or Nyctosaurus, with crests taller than their own bodies. Paleontologists believe these crests may have been for display, or for stabilizing flight, or perhaps both. Fossil evidence from sites like Solnhofen in Germany shows pterosaur wings in remarkable detail. The limestone preserved not only bones, but the fine impressions of wing membranes and even soft tissue fibers, suggesting their wings were strong, flexible, alive with veins and muscles. The sound of silence. Close your eyes and listen. The air is warm, filled with the faint hum of insects. Then rush. A shadow sweeps overhead, wings cutting air. A deep hush like the passing of a sail. A beak snaps shut on a fish, the sound sharp and final. Then silence again, the creature gliding upward until it disappears into clouds. The skies of the Jurassic and Cretaceous were not empty. They were theaters of movement, filled with shadows vast and small, circling, diving, soaring. The whisper of fossils. Pterosaurs remind us that life has always pushed against boundaries. The first to claim the skies. They mastered flight for over 150 million years. Yet by the end of the Cretaceous, they too would vanish in the shadow of the Great Extinction. But their bones remain hollow, fragile, delicate, pressed into stone. In museums, their skeletons stretch upward, wings wide, silent echoes of skies long gone. And as we look at them, we remember a time when monsters did not only swim or walk, they flew. The forests of the Jurassic were green and warm, shaded by cycads, ferns, and towering conifers. Across these landscapes moved creatures that seemed more like living fortresses than animals. Among them were the stegosaurs, the great plated dinosaurs, slow but unmistakable. Imagine one now. Its body is heavy, four-legged, with a small head lowered close to the ground as it grazes on ferns. Rising from its back are two rows of tall, diamond-shaped plates, tilting left and right in a staggered line. Near its tail, for long spikes jut outward like spears. This was Stegosaurus, one of the most iconic dinosaurs of the Jurassic, known from fossils found in Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. The plates have long been a puzzle. Were they used for defense or display, or for regulating temperature? Some paleontologists believe blood vessels ran through them, allowing the animal to absorb or release heat, like giant radiators. Others suggest the plates were brightly colored, a way to signal mates or intimidate rivals. Standing beside one in life, you would not only see its bulk, but also the shifting gleam of those strange panels rising above it, catching the light as it moved. Its head, in contrast, was small, with a brain no larger than a walnut. Yet size alone does not measure success. Stegosaurs thrived for millions of years, grazing quietly in herds, their tails called thagomisers, ready to lash out with bone-crushing force if predators approached. Fossil evidence shows puncture wounds in the bones of large carnivores, likely caused by these weapons. To face a stegosaur was to risk impalement, even for the mightiest hunter. But stegosaurs were not alone. Across the Jurassic, other armored herbivores evolved, each with their own defenses. Wyangosaurus of China carried smaller plates and spikes, an early experiment in armor. Later relatives in Africa and Europe bore different arrangements, each suited to its environment. Together, they created a living lineage of plated defenders, quietly shaping the balance between predator and prey. Picture the sound of their world, the low crunch of teeth grinding plant matter, the shuffle of heavy feet through ferns, the soft clatter as tails swayed, plates brushing against branches. Above, pterosaurs drifted across the sky. In the distance, the calls of carnivorous dinosaurs echoed faintly. a reminder that danger always lingered near. Yet in the shade of cycads, stegosaurs grazed steadily, armored but calm, their presence as much a part of the forest as the trees themselves. The fossils remind us of their strength. Skeletons of stegosaurs, with plates and spikes still aligned, reveal how their bodies worked. In quarries across the American West, entire skeletons have been uncovered, lying in stone as if still resting. Their shapes, so strange and distinct, need little imagination to see as they once were. Fortresses of bone and armor, moving slowly beneath Jurassic suns. If you stand quietly in their world, you do not hear the clash of battle. You hear grazing, shuffling, breathing, a life lived in steady rhythm, defended by spines and plates, shaped by millions of years of survival. And in that rhythm, the forest seems to breathe with them. The Jurassic forests were not peaceful for long. Where herds of stegosaurs moved with steady rhythm, hunters followed, swift and silent, their eyes sharp, their teeth honed by millions of years of hunger. Among these predators was one that dominated its world, a carnivore as fearsome in its time as any lion or tiger today. This was Allosaurus. Its fossils, discovered in the Morrison Formation of the American West, reveal a predator that could grow over 8 meters long, its skull broad and deep, its jaws lined with dozens of serrated teeth. Unlike the later Tyrannosaurus, Allosaurus had teeth designed not just for crushing, but for slicing, tearing through muscle with saw-like edges. Its arms, though small compared to its body, were powerful, ending in 3 sharp claws that could grip struggling prey. Imagine the sound of it moving, the soft thud of heavy footsteps across dry soil, the rustle of ferns as its tail swayed, the faint hiss of breath through nostrils as it stalked. Allosaurus was not the only predator of its age, but it was among the most successful. Its bones found in abundance, suggesting it was both widespread and dominant. Some paleontologists believe Allosaurus hunted in groups, though the evidence is debated. In Cleveland Lloyd Quarry in Utah, the remains of dozens of individuals have been found together, a puzzle of bones suggesting either social behavior or a mass death event. If they did hunt together, then imagine this scene, a herd of sauropods in the distance, their necks swaying as they grazed, and in the shadows, not one predator, but many, circling, testing, waiting for weakness. Even alone, Allosaurus was formidable. Its skull was built to absorb stress, its neck muscles strong enough to power a strike like an axe, driving its jaws down into flesh and pulling back with tearing force. Fossil evidence on the bones of stegosaurs shows deep gouges, wounds likely caused by Allosaurus teeth. One famous fossil of a stegosaur tail spike shows it punctured the pelvis of an Allosaurus, a frozen record of predator and prey locked in deadly combat. Yet Allosaurus was not mindless violence. It was an animal living as all do, breathing, moving, surviving. Close your eyes and picture it not in attack, but in rest. The sun warms a clearing. A half-grown Allosaurus lies sprawled in the shade of a conifer, its ribs rising and falling, its mouth slightly open as it pants softly in the heat, its eyes close, for even monsters must sleep. Around it, smaller scavengers pick at the remains of an earlier kill. Insects buzzing in clouds above. The bones tell us that Allosaurus lived long, sometimes reaching old age. Healed injuries suggest it could endure broken bones, damaged jaws, even infections, and still survive. Some individuals show scars of lives filled with struggle, yet they endured, proof of resilience as much as ferocity. The Jurassic was an age of giants, but it was predators like Allosaurus that gave it shape, testing the strength of herds, shaping the defenses of armored prey, balancing the great cycle of life and death. Without them, the forests and plains would have been different, quieter, less dynamic. In the stillness of the fossil record, we hear their story. Bones locked in stone whisper of hunts, of battles, of quiet breaths taken in shaded clearings. And if you let yourself drift, you can almost hear it, the slow rhythm of footsteps, the deep breath of a hunter at rest, the silence of a world held in balance by tooth and claw. The forests of the Jurassic were shaped not only by hunters, but by giants so vast they seemed like moving landscapes, where Allosaurus prowled with teeth and speed. Sauropods rose like living towers, their necks stretching into the canopy, their shadows darkening the ground below. Among them was one of the most extraordinary of all, Brachiosaurus. Unlike most sauropods, which held their bodies horizontally, Brachiosaurus carried its neck high, angled upward like a giraffe, allowing it to browse on leaves far above the reach of others. Its forelegs were longer than its hind legs, tilting its body forward, lifting its shoulders higher than its hips. The result was a silhouette unlike any other dinosaur, front-heavy, towering, majestic. Its fossils, uncovered in Colorado and Tanzania, show an animal that could reach over 20 meters in length, weighing perhaps 40 to 50 tons. Its heart alone, paleontologists estimate, may have weighed more than 400 kilograms, powerful enough to pump blood up its long neck to a brain held meters above the ground. Every breath was a feat of biology, lungs filling with air that flowed through a complex system of sacs, keeping its massive body oxygenated. Close your eyes and imagine standing beneath it. The ground trembles faintly with each step. The air shifts as its enormous body passes. You hear the deep creak of tree trunks as it stretches its neck into branches, stripping foliage with a sweep of its peg-like teeth. Around you, others move slowly, herds of long-necked giants grazing at different heights, their bodies swaying in rhythm with the forest itself. The Morrison Formation in the American West preserves their world in stone. Fossilized trackways show herds of sauropods moving together, long parallel lines of massive footprints pressed into ancient mud. These tracks whisper of social lives, of journeys across floodplains in search of food and water, of calves sheltered in the center of the herd. Predators like Allosaurus tested them, but a full-grown Brachiosaurus was too large, too powerful. Its sheer size a defense few dared to challenge. It was the young, the weak, the stragglers who were vulnerable, and it was perhaps in protecting these that herds found their strength. The balance of predator and prey stretched across every clearing, every riverbank, shaping lives with each step. And yet, for all their bulk, sauropods were not clumsy. Their skeletons reveal hollow bones, strong but light, reducing weight without losing strength. Their tails, long and flexible, may have cracked like whips, startling predators or signaling to others. Their very size was not just survival, it was success, a way of reaching food no other animal could touch, a way of shaping forests by their feeding. Now let yourself drift into their world. The air is heavy with the scent of resin and ferns. Sunlight filters through conifers, glinting on scales that shimmer faintly in muted greens and browns. The earth is soft beneath your feet, pressed flat by colossal tracks. Overhead, the neck of Brachiosaurus sways slowly, a living tree moving against the sky. Its eye blinks once, calm, unhurried. Then it turns away, stepping onward, its body vanishing into the forest like a hill walking on legs. In museums today, mounted skeletons rise above us, towering into rafters, their spines arching like bridges. We tilt our heads back to take them in, dwarfed by bones that still command awe. And those stone holds only silence. In our minds we can fill it with the deep, steady breath of giants, with the tremor of footsteps, with the quiet rhythm of life lived on a scale beyond our own. The Jurassic world was not only teeth and claws, but grace and enormity. Herds of colossi moving through forests in endless procession. In their presence, everything else seemed small, even time itself. In the stillness of a late Jurassic forest, where cycads and conifers swayed in soft winds and dragonflies glinted in shafts of light, something small and feathered took to the air. It was not the leathery shadow of a pterosaur gliding on stretched skin. It was something new, something delicate, something caught forever between earth and sky. This was Archaeopteryx. The fossils come to us from the limestone of Solnhofen in Germany, a place where fine sediments preserved the smallest of details. There, in rocks over 150 million years old, paleontologists found impressions of feathers, so perfect that even the barbs and veins remain visible. One of the earliest specimens was discovered in 1861, only 2 years after Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species. It was a find that seemed to leap from the very pages of theory, half reptile, half bird, a bridge in stone. Archaeopteryx was about the size of a raven, with wings feathered for flight. Yet it carried traits of its dinosaur kin. Its teeth were sharp and reptilian. Its tail was long and bony, not yet shortened into the stiff fan of modern birds. Its claws, 3 on each wing, suggest it could climb trees. gripping bark before launching into the air. In every bone it spoke of transition, an echo of both past and future. Imagine watching it in life. The forest canopy above is alive with insects, the air warm and still. A flutter of wings stirs the branches, and Archaeopteryx leaps from a trunk, feathers spreading wide. It glides in a short burst across a clearing, wings beating in rapid strokes. Before alighting on another branch, it tilts its head, eyes glinting, tail balancing as it hunts for prey. Its call is sharp, bird-like but strange, a sound not yet refined by evolution's long practice. The discovery of Archaeopteryx transformed paleontology. Before it, the idea that birds descended from reptiles was speculation. After it, there was proof pressed into stone. Later studies of its feathers revealed asymmetry, the hallmark of flight. Its wishbone, like that of modern birds, hinted at the mechanics of wing beats. And yet, its skeleton remained undeniably dinosaurian. Today, most scientists agree that birds are living dinosaurs, the direct descendants of theropods like Allosaurus and Velociraptor. The whisper of wings in your garden is the echo of Jurassic forests. Close your eyes and listen. The forest is quiet, save for the buzz of insects. Then a soft flutter, a faint beat of wings. You glance upward and see a silhouette. Against the light, a feathered body gliding, tail outstretched, claws gripping as it lands. For a moment, you are watching the very first bird, its wings a bridge across time. The limestone slabs of Solnhofen hold not just one, but several specimens of Archaeopteryx, each telling a slightly different story, some with full skeletons, some with partial feathers, some showing faint outlines of their last moments. In them, we see more than fossils. We see the very moment evolution unfolded its hand, letting a dinosaur lift into the air on feathers. In museums, the slabs rest under glass, feathers still etched in stone. Visitors lean close, whispering, drawn into the delicate traces of something that once fluttered above Jurassic trees. They do not roar, these creatures. They do not tower. They whisper, with feathers, with flight, with the quiet persistence of life finding new ways. And as you drift deeper into their world, imagine the air filled with soft wing beats, the quiet miracle of a creature learning to fly. The world turned, and the Jurassic gave way to the Cretaceous, a time when the oceans deepened and spread across the continents. Vast inland seas stretched where plains had once been, and the waters filled with predators unlike any that had come before. It was here that the mosasaurs appeared, lords of the late Cretaceous seas, monsters that turned every coastline into a hunting ground. They were not dinosaurs, though they lived beside them. They were reptiles, close kin to lizards and snakes. But they had taken to the water with astonishing success. Their bodies were long and powerful, driven by tails that beat side to side like the flukes of sharks. Their skulls were wide, their jaws hinged with flexibility, their teeth sharp and conical, perfect for seizing slippery prey. Some species, like Tylosaurus, grew more than 12 meters in length, their shadows stretching across the shallows like moving reefs. The fossils of mosasaurs come to us from every corner of the world. In the chalk cliffs of Kansas, paleontologists uncovered skeletons, so complete that even the outlines of scales remain. In the Netherlands, centuries ago, quarrymen found great reptilian bones embedded in limestone, the first hints of these ancient monsters. In Morocco today, mosasaur teeth and bones lie scattered through phosphate mines, so common that they are sold as curiosities, tokens of an age when seas covered North Africa. Picture them in life. The sun sets across a shallow sea. The water is warm, filled with schools of fish and drifting ammonites. Then, without warning, a shape rises from the depths. A long snout breaks the surface, teeth gleaming, eyes fixed. The body follows sleek, muscular, a predator built for speed. Its jaws snap shut on a fish nearly half its size, and with a twist of its body, it tears the prey in two. Blood and scales drift in the current, and then silence returns as the mosasaur sinks back into darkness. Some species grew to monstrous size. Mosasaurus hoffmanni, the largest of them all, may have reached 15 to 17 meters in length. Its jaws were lined with more than 40 teeth, each capable of gripping and crushing bone. The name Mosasaurus itself means lizard of the Meuse River, after the place in the Netherlands, where its remains were first found in the 18th century, long before the word dinosaur had even been invented. To the people of that time, it was a dragon, a serpent, a sea monster born from stone. The Cretaceous seas were not empty, not quiet. Alongside mosasaurs swam giant turtles, sharks, and fish as large as buses. Ammonites, their coiled shells glistening, filled the waters in spirals of color. But wherever they drifted, mosasaurs followed. Fossil stomach contents reveal ammonite shells cracked open inside their ribs. Fish bones etched with acid, even the remains of smaller mosasaurs, proof that they were not above, hunting their own kind. Close your eyes now, drift with the waves, feel the sway of the sea. The light above fades into green shadows, and below you something stirs. A vast body glides with ease, tail sweeping, flippers beating softly. For a moment it passes beneath you, its scales catching light, its eye turning upward, golden and sharp. You feel its presence, immense and silent. Then, with a flick of its tail, it vanishes into the depths, leaving only the hush of water behind. Mosasaurs reigned for only a short time, by Earth's measure barely 20 million years, but in that span, they dominated oceans across the globe. When the Great Extinction came at the end of the Cretaceous, they vanished with the dinosaurs, their seas silenced once more. Yet their fossils remain, crowding museum halls, jaws agape, teeth bared as if still hunting. They are reminders that the oceans, for all their beauty, have always hidden monsters in their depths, and as you drift into their world, the waters close gently above you, carrying whispers of giants that once ruled the seas. Some species grew to monstrous size. Mosasaurus hoffmanni, the largest of them all, may have reached 15 to 17 meters in length. Its jaws were lined with more than 40 teeth, each capable of gripping and crushing bone. The name Mosasaurus itself means lizard of the Meuse River, after the place in the Netherlands, where its remains were first found in the 18th century, long before the word dinosaur had even been invented. To the people of that time, it was a dragon, a serpent, a sea monster born from stone. The Cretaceous seas were not empty, not quiet. Alongside mosasaurs swam giant turtles, sharks, and fish as large as buses. Ammonites, their coiled shells glistening, filled the waters in spirals of color. But wherever they drifted, mosasaurs followed. Fossil stomach contents reveal ammonite shells cracked open inside their ribs, fish bones etched with acid, even the remains of smaller mosasaurs, proof that they were not above, hunting their own kind. Close your eyes now, drift with the waves, feel the sway of the sea. The light above fades into green shadows, and below you something stirs. A vast body glides with ease, tail sweeping, flippers beating softly. For a moment it passes beneath you, its scales catching light, its eye turning upward, golden and sharp. You feel its presence, immense and silent. Then, with a flick of its tail, it vanishes into the depths, leaving only the hush of water behind. Mosasaurs reigned for only a short time, by Earth's measure barely 20 million years, but in that span, they dominated oceans across the globe. When the Great Extinction came at the end of the Cretaceous, they vanished with the dinosaurs, their seas silenced once more. Yet their fossils remain, crowding museum halls, jaws agape, teeth bared as if still hunting. They are reminders that the oceans, for all their beauty, have always hidden monsters in their depths, and as you drift into their world, the waters close gently above you, carrying whispers of giants that once ruled the seas. The land of the late Cretaceous was alive with sounds, the distant rumble of herds moving through forests, the calls of horned dinosaurs echoing across plains, the rustle of undergrowth as smaller creatures slipped between ferns. And above it all, there was one presence that cast a shadow longer than any other. A predator whose name still resonates like thunder. This was Tyrannosaurus rex. Its bones have been found across western North America, from Montana to South Dakota, preserved in riverbeds and badlands that once were lush floodplains. They tell of an animal that could reach over 12 meters in length, standing for meters tall at the hip, weighing more than 7 tons. Its skull alone stretched nearly 1.5 meters, jaws lined with teeth thicker than a human's wrist. Those teeth were not delicate blades but massive cones, serrated, designed to crush bone as easily as flesh. Imagine the sound of it feeding. The crack of bone splitting, the scrape of serrated teeth pulling through sinew, the deep hiss of breath between bites. Studies of bite force suggest Tyrannosaurus could deliver pressures of more than 8,000 pounds per square inch, stronger than any predator before or since. Fossilized bones of hadrosaurs and triceratops show deep punctures, shattered ribs, even signs of healing, proof that victims sometimes survived attacks, only to carry scars of the encounter for the rest of their lives. But Tyrannosaurus was not only a predator. Evidence suggests it was also a scavenger, willing to strip carcasses, to follow the smell of decay across miles. Its sense of smell, revealed by enlarged olfactory regions in its skull, was extraordinary, perhaps one of the sharpest in the animal kingdom. Whether hunting or scavenging, it missed little, though land was never safe where its shadow fell. Picture the world around it. Herds of hadrosaurs grazing on cycads, triceratops moving slowly, horns low as they fed on low plants. In the distance, a pair of ankylosaurs shuffle past, their tails tipped with heavy clubs, and then silence, the kind that falls when every creature senses something vast approaching. From the tree line emerges a Tyrannosaurus, its head swaying, tail counterbalancing its steps, its eyes forward-facing, track motion. Its mouth opens slightly, breath misting in the cool of morning. The forest stills, and the balance of life tilts in its favor. The fossils we hold today tell stories of individuals as well as the species. One famous skeleton, nicknamed Soothe, discovered in South Dakota in 1990, is over 90% complete, revealing even the tiniest details of muscle attachment and bone growth. Another, Stan, shows healed injuries, including broken ribs and a damaged neck vertebra, scars of battles survived. These remains remind us that Tyrannosaurus was not invincible. It lived, struggled, fought, and endured as any creature does. For all its size, it was not constant violence. Imagine it resting. The giant lies in the shade of a conifer grove, its ribs rising and falling slowly. Insects buzz near its eyes. Its massive tail curls gently against the earth. For a moment it is still, a mountain of muscle and bone simply breathing, existing in quiet, until hunger stirs it once more. The late Cretaceous was the age of titans, but Tyrannosaurus rex became its symbol, not because it was the largest predator of all time, but because it embodied dominance. Its bones stand in museums as if they still command the land, jaws gaping, teeth bared. Yet in the end, like all monsters before it, it too fell to silence, vanishing in the great extinction that closed the Cretaceous. Still, its name lingers, whispered across centuries, etched into stone and memory, king, tyrant, monster, yet always alive in our imagination. The desert winds of the late Cretaceous sweep across a dry landscape of sand and scrub. The air is hot, the sky clear, and scattered across the ground are the tracks of small, agile hunters, These are not the towering giants of the movies, not the oversized monsters we imagine from fiction. These are the real velociraptors. Their fossils come to us from Mongolia, preserved in the Gobi Desert. They reveal animals only about 2 meters long, standing less than a meter tall at the hip, lightly built, weighing no more than a large dog. Yet within that small frame was a predator perfectly adapted for speed, agility, and precision. Its skull was long and narrow, lined with sharp teeth. Its arms were feathered, its tail stiffened by rods of bone that helped it balance in quick turns. Most striking of all were its feet. Each carried a sickle-shaped claw. On the second toe, sharp and curved, raised as it ran, brought down in slashing arcs when it struck prey. Close your eyes and imagine one moving. It darts across the sand, tail held straight, head low, eyes forward. Its steps are light, fast, almost bird-like. When it stops, its chest rises and falls in short, quick breaths. A flick of its claw scratches the ground as it waits, testing before leaping again. This is not a lumbering beast. It is a whisper of motion, a dancer on the edge of silence. The most famous fossil of Velociraptor captures it locked in combat. Found in Mongolia in the 1970s, it shows a velociraptor and a protoceratops frozen together, claws embedded in flesh, jaws locked around limbs, buried suddenly by a collapsing sand dune. They died as they lived in struggle, predator and prey entombed in a final moment. It is one of the most dramatic fossils ever found, a reminder that life in the Cretaceous was as violent as it was fragile. Yet Velociraptor was not all teeth and claws. Fossil quill knobs on its forearm bones prove it had feathers, like a bird. It could not fly, but its plumage may have been used for display, or for balance as it hunted, or for keeping its body warm during cold desert nights. Picture it now, feathers catching the light, shimmering in muted browns and blacks as it moves across a dune. It looks less like a reptile, more like a bird stripped of its wings, an echo of flight trapped on land. Their brains, relative to body size, were large, suggesting sharp senses and quick reactions. Some paleontologists believe they may have hunted in groups, though evidence is debated. Whether alone or in small bands, they were capable predators, quick enough to chase lizards and mammals, daring enough to leap at larger prey. The deserts they roamed were harsh, but life thrived their herds of small horned dinosaurs, burrowing mammals, and birds already taking to the air. In such a world, Velociraptor carved its niche not through size, but through agility, intelligence, and patience. Picture the desert night. The wind calms, stars stretch endlessly above. The air cools sharply after the heat of day. In the shadows, a velociraptor crouches low, feathers ruffling in the breeze. Its eyes glint faintly as it watches movement among the dunes. It waits, tail twitching in silence, until hunger drives it forward. Then it leaps, claws extended, a blur in the starlight. The real velociraptor was not the monster of cinema, but something stranger, subtler, no less fascinating. Small, feathered, quick, it lived in a world already shifting toward birds, carrying within it the hints of wings, the spark of flight not yet taken. In stone, it is frozen mid-battle. In our minds, it still runs across desert sands, light-footed, sharp-eyed, a reminder that monsters need not be large to endure. Across the plains of the late Cretaceous, herds moved with steady rhythm, their heavy steps leaving broad prints in the soil. These were not predators, but giants armed with shields and horns, creatures that lived in groups, grazing, defending, watching the horizon. Among them was one of the most recognizable of all dinosaurs, a living fortress of bone and horn, Triceratops. Its skull was enormous, stretching more than 2 meters long, one of the largest ever grown by any land animal. At the back rose a wide frill of bone, like a shield protecting its neck. From its brow jutted to long, forward-curving horns, sharp and powerful, while a shorter horn rose from its snout. In life, these horns were sheathed in keratin, making them even longer and sharper than the bone beneath. Its body was massive, up to 9 meters from nose to tail, weighing 6 tons. Yet it walked steadily on for sturdy legs, a grazer that shaped its world through numbers and resilience. Fossils of Triceratops are found across North America, especially in the Hell Creek Formation, where its bones lie alongside those of Tyrannosaurus rex. They tell a story not just of one species, but of an entire family of horned dinosaurs, the ceratopsians, that flourished in the Cretaceous. Some had short frills, some long and decorated, some with elaborate spikes curling outward. Each skull was different, some as plain as shields, others like crowns of bone. Close your eyes and picture them in life. A herd moves slowly through a clearing, frills glinting in the sun, horns tilting as they graze on low plants. Their beaks snap tough cycads, their teeth grind ferns into pulp. Calves walk safely in the center, sheltered by a ring of adults. When danger threatens, the herd stiffens, heads lift, tails stiffen, nostrils flare. Dozens of horns angle outward, forming a wall of sharp defenses. Even the boldest predator hesitates at the sight. Evidence suggests that Triceratops used its horns not only for defense, but also for combat among themselves. Fossil skulls bear scars, healed punctures, and grooves that match the size and shape of horns. It seems likely that males clashed in contests, locking horns, shoving with immense force, struggling for dominance or mates. Picture the sound of such a duel, the grinding scrape of horn on horn, the thud of massive bodies colliding, dust rising as the giants push, strain, and finally part, one victorious, the other retreating but alive. And yet, for all their armor, they were not invincible. Bite marks on Triceratops' bones show that Tyrannosaurus hunted them, or at least fed on their carcasses. A lone individual, separated from the herd, may have been vulnerable to attack. Even so, many fossils show signs of survival, bones healing after injuries, evidence that these giants lived long enough to endure battle after battle. Now let yourself stand among them. The air smells of crushed fern and damp earth. The ground trembles faintly beneath their footsteps. A young triceratops peers curiously, its small frill patterned with faint colors, perhaps used for recognition within the herd. An adult lowers its head, horns angled, watching you with deep, steady eyes. There is no rush, no roar, only the steady rhythm of chewing, the shuffle of feet, the soft snort of breath. In museums, their skulls tower above us, frills wide, horns sharp even after millions of years. They are reminders of power, of unity, of lives lived in groups that shaped the land through sheer presence. They do not need to be imagined in conflict to inspire awe. Their very form, massive and deliberate, is enough. And as you drift deeper into their world, you hear the low rumble of the herd, the crunch of plants torn from the ground, the whisper of horns brushing past each other. The plains are alive with horned giants, moving together, their shadows long in the light of a fading Cretaceous sun. The last forests of the Cretaceous were not only home to horned giants with their sweeping frills, but to creatures built like living tanks. Where predators roamed and shadows fell, these herbivores did not run. They crouched low, dug in, and turned their bodies into fortresses of bone and armor. These were the ankylosaurs. Their fossils, found across North America, Asia, and Europe, show bodies covered in osteoderms, bony plates that fused into shields, spikes, and knobs. Their backs were like cobblestones set in skin, thick and unyielding. Even their eyelids were armored. To stand near one was to see a creature transformed into moving stone, every inch built for defense. One of the most impressive was Ankylosaurus, a massive dinosaur nearly 7 meters long, weighing over 4 tons. Its back was a mosaic of armor, heavy but balanced by a wide, low body. Its most famous weapon lay at the end of its tail, a great bony club, thick and solid, built from fused vertebrae. With a swing of its tail, Ankylosaurus could shatter bone. Studies of fossil injuries suggest that a blow from such a tail could break the leg of a predator, even one as fearsome as Tyrannosaurus rex. Close your eyes and picture it. The forest is quiet. A shadow moves between the trees, jaws glinting with teeth. The ankylosaur stiffens, its tail rising, its body crouching low. The predator hesitates, steps closer, testing. Then, with sudden force, the tail lashes sideways. The air cracks, bone meets bone, and the predator stumbles back, wounded. Silence returns. The ankylosaur lowers its tail, resumes grazing, unshaken. Not all ankylosaurs were the same. Some, like Euoplocephalus of Canada, carried rows of spikes along their sides. Others, like Sacania of Mongolia, had armor so thick that even their throats were protected. Fossil skulls reveal nasal passages twisted into complex labyrinths, perhaps helping to filter air, regulate temperature, or even amplify low calls that rumbled through the forest. The Hell Creek Formation, where Ankylosaurus bones are found, preserves not only skeletons, but the world they lived in: rivers winding through floodplains, forests dense with conifers and flowering plants. Trackways show ankylosaurs moving slowly across mudflats, their footprints round, steady, deliberate. They were not swift, but they did not need to be. Their survival lay not in running, but in enduring, in being untouchable. Imagine walking behind one. Its white body sways with each step, armor plates gleaming in dappled light. Its tail club drags faintly, then lifts in readiness, muscles coiled like springs. It pauses, lowers its head, and pulls at ferns with a gentle motion, teeth grinding slowly. The sound is soft, ordinary, until you remember that every scale of its body is a shield, every movement a preparation for defense. In museums, ankylosaur skeletons seem almost unreal. Their armor plates, fitted together like puzzles, glisten under glass. Their tail clubs rest silent, but heavy, a reminder of strength without speed. These were creatures that did not chase, did not roar, but survived through patience, resilience, and power waiting quietly to be used. The Cretaceous forests must have been alive with their presence. Herds of hadrosaurs called in the distance. Horned dinosaurs lowered their frills in warning. Above it all, predators watched, hungry and sharp. Yet here, in the undergrowth, ankylosaurs grazed unbothered, armored fortresses moving at their own pace, unshaken by the dangers that haunted their world. As you drift into their time, hear the low crack of branches beneath their steps, the grinding rhythm of teeth on leaves, the faint rush of air as a tail swings just above the ground. The forest is not silent. It hums with patience, with power hidden beneath stillness. The armored fortresses of the Cretaceous move on, unhurried, through the shadows of an age soon to end. The final chapter of the Cretaceous stretched across a world that, in many ways, would feel familiar to us now. Flowering plants bloomed in meadows and forests. Rivers carved winding paths through floodplains. Insects buzzed in swarms, and birds filled the skies with song. Yet beneath this almost modern surface walked giants, the last great dinosaurs, living out their days unaware that their age was drawing to a close. In North America, the Hell Creek ecosystem was a place of extraordinary diversity. Herds of hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, moved in vast numbers, grazing on soft plants along riverbanks. They were not silent creatures. Fossil evidence of their hollow crests, like those of Parasaurolophus, suggests they could produce deep, resonant calls haunting, low tones that carried for miles, perhaps used to keep herds together or to signal across forests. Imagine standing on a floodplain at dusk, the air cooling, When a chorus of hadrosaurs lifts into the evening air, deep notes rumbling like horns across the land. Alongside them moved the horned dinosaurs Triceratops, Torosaurus, and their kin. Their frills and horns were more than weapons. They were displays, each species carrying its own unique ornament, perhaps brightly patterned, perhaps used in mating rituals as much as in defense. Their herds spread across the plains, heads swaying low, horns flashing in the sun, and everywhere predators lurked. Tyrannosaurus rex, immense and sharp-eyed, followed the herds, waiting for weakness. Juveniles, smaller and more slender, may have hunted differently than the giants they grew into, chasing smaller prey in packs. Fossil evidence of bone injuries, bite marks, and healed wounds tells us this was a world of constant testing, of balance between hunger and survival. In the shallows of rivers, turtles and crocodiles basked, their lineages stretching far into the past, and destined to continue long after the dinosaurs were gone. Small mammals darted through the underbrush, most no larger than rodents, their lives spent in shadows, feeding in darkness, hiding from giants. Yet in them lay the seeds of a future that would blossom once the giants fell. Birds, too, were spreading, no longer just feathered dinosaurs, but true flyers, filling niches across the globe. Some dove for fish, others perched in trees, their calls mingling with the insect hum. They were the quiet inheritors of a legacy that had begun with Archaeopteryx, carrying the story of dinosaurs forward even after extinction would strike. The plants of this world tell a story too. The Cretaceous was when flowering plants' angiosperms spread widely, transforming ecosystems. Fossil pollen grains, tiny but indestructible, lie in Cretaceous rocks as testimony to their rise. With flowers came bees, butterflies, and countless insects, reshaping the balance of food and survival. The age of dinosaurs was also the age when the world we know first began to take shape, its rhythms of bloom and pollination already alive. Close your eyes and step into this final world. The air is warm, carrying the scent of pine and flowers. A herd of hadrosaurs grazes nearby, their tails swaying, their calls resonant and low. Beyond them, Triceratops lower their heads, horns glinting as they shuffle forward in unison. In the distance, a shadow moves a Tyrannosaurus, massive and patient, watching. Overhead, birds flutter from tree to tree, their feathers catching the light. At your feet, a small mammal scurries through the leaf litter, vanishing into its burrow. This was the last age of dinosaurs, but not a dying world. It was vibrant, filled with life in every form, balanced in ways both familiar and strange. The extinction to come would fall like lightning, sudden and catastrophic. But in these final millions of years, the Earth was alive with sound and motion. Every forest and floodplain filled with breath and struggle. The fossils preserve their story in fragments, bones pressed into sandstone, teeth gleaming from ancient riverbeds. pollen grains caught in stone. Together, they reveal a picture of a world at its height, unaware that an ending waited beyond the horizon. For now, the land is alive. Giants move steadily across plains. Predators watch with patience. Birds fill the skies with fleeting song. It is a moment of fullness, of abundance, a world rich and complete, standing on the edge of silence. The last days of the Cretaceous passed without warning. Herds grazed, predators hunted, forests bloomed, rivers flowed. Nothing in the rhythm of that world hinted at what was coming. Yet above the earth, far beyond the blue sky, a body of stone and ice was falling, drawn by gravity on a path that could not be turned. It struck the Yucatan Peninsula in what is now Mexico, near a place we call Chicxulub. The impactor was about 10 kilometers across, but its speed over 70,000 kilometers per hour turned it into a force of unimaginable power. In a single instant, more energy was released than in all the volcanoes and earthquakes of human history combined. The ground shook as shock waves tore through the planet. A crater more than 150 kilometers wide opened in seconds. Rock liquefied, mountains rose and fell. Fire spread outward, igniting forests thousands of kilometers away. Fragments of molten stone rained from the sky, heating the atmosphere until even plants far from the impact site burst into flame. For those who lived, it was chaos. Herds of triceratops stampeded as ash fell like snow. Tyrannosaurus lifted its head and roared at a sky gone red with fire. Birds and small mammals fled into burrows, cracks, and shadows, anywhere the heat might not reach. The seas boiled with shock waves. Tsunamis towering higher than city buildings raced across oceans, smashing coastlines far from the impact site. And then came the darkness. Dust and soot, blasted high into the atmosphere, circled the earth, blocking the sun. For months, perhaps years, the sky remained dim, temperatures plummeting, plants withering. Photosynthesis slowed, then stopped. Forests died, and with them the herbivores. Without prey, the great predators faltered. The fossil record bears witness to this silence. Above the Cretaceous layers filled with dinosaur bones and pollen from flowering plants, lies a thin line of clay enriched with iridium, a rare metal more common in asteroids than in Earth's crust. That layer, found across the globe, from Italy to New Zealand, is this scar of impact, the fingerprint of the object that ended an age. Close your eyes and imagine standing in that moment. The air is hot, thick with ash. The sky glows dim, a fading orange through smoke. Around you, silence spreads where once there was life. The herds are gone. The forests blackened. You hear only the faint hiss of settling dust, the soft crackle of dying fire. And in that silence, the age of dinosaurs closes. Yet not all was lost. Some birds, small and adaptable, survived. Mammals, burrowed and hidden, endured. Crocodiles, turtles, and creatures of rivers and lakes weathered the storm. Out of destruction came the seeds of what would follow the rise of mammals, and eventually the story of us. But for the dinosaurs, for the mosasaurs in the seas, for the great flying pterosaurs in the skies, it was the end. 66 million years ago, an impact ended their reign in a moment of fire and shadow. The world turned quiet. The giants were gone. Only the bones remained, locked in stone, waiting to be found, to be remembered. The fire had faded, the skies dimmed, and the forests lay quiet. The giants were gone, no more herds of horned dinosaurs, no more long-necked sauropods, no more tyrants with teeth like knives. Yet the earth was not empty. In the stillness that followed the impact, some creatures endured. These were the survivors, the quiet ones, those who found shelter in water, in burrows, in patience. Crocodiles were among them. Their lineage stretched far back into the Triassic, and though they had shared the world with dinosaurs, they did not fall with them. Fossils from the end of the Cretaceous show crocodiles living in rivers and lakes, lying low in water as they do today, waiting for prey. When the impact came, their habits saved them. Semi-aquatic, able to go long periods without food. Cold-blooded enough to endure shifts in temperature. They slipped into survival while larger, hungrier predators vanished. Close your eyes and picture it. A darkened river, ash falling like snow across the surface. And just beneath, a pair of eyes breaking the water, watching, unblinking, enduring. Turtles, too, survived. Their shells, shields of bone, protected them from predators, and their lives in rivers and wetlands offered refuge when the skies grew dark. Fossil evidence shows turtles before and after the impact. Their lineage barely interrupted. Even as forests burned, as the climate shifted, they carried on, steady and unchanged, paddling in silence through murky waters. Birds, the feathered heirs of dinosaurs, also lived through the extinction. Not all survived, many lineages disappeared, but some small. Ground-dwelling birds endured. Their ability to feed on seeds may have been their salvation, for seeds could survive in the soil even when plants withered above. Fossil pollen and seed records from the boundary layer suggest that while forests thinned, patches of plant life persisted, enough for the birds to cling to life. And from those survivors, all the birds we know today are descended. The sparrows, the eagles, the hummingbirds, they are living echoes of a world of giants, carrying flight forward after the skies grew silent. Mammals, too, stepped quietly into survival. In the Cretaceous, they had been small burrowers, insect eaters, nocturnal foragers living in shadows. While dinosaurs thundered above, mammals dug below. When fire swept the land, when ash dimmed the skies, it was the mammals in burrows who endured. Their fossils after the impact show new forms spreading quickly, diversifying, filling the spaces left empty by fallen giants. From them, in time, would come primates, whales, horses, and humans. The fossil record tells us this survival was not easy. For thousands of years after the impact, ecosystems were simple and fragile. Many groups barely hung on. The air was cool, the land scarred, the oceans unstable. Yet life clung to every corner it could. In riverbeds, crocodiles drifted. In lakes, turtles paddled. In underbrush, mammals scurried. And in the skies, the first true birds fluttered on. Imagine that world. The silence is heavy, but not complete. Along a muddy riverbank, a crocodile lies still, its skin dark against ash-streaked water. A turtle pushes slowly through reeds, its shell glistening with soot. Overhead, a small bird bursts from a thicket, wings beating quickly, vanishing into the trees. At your feet, something stirs beneath the soil, a mammal, tiny, whiskered, nose twitching as it emerges, blinking into weak light. These are the ones who made it through, the ones who carried the story forward, and in time, they would inherit the earth. The Great Extinction ended an age of monsters, but it did not end life. It never does. Life bends, hides, waits, and when the fire passes, when the ash settles, it grows again. From survivors come new worlds, new giants, new whispers of evolution. The crocodiles still wait in rivers. The turtles still drift in ponds. The birds still sing. And mammals, our ancestors, took their first unsteady steps toward the future. The silence after the dinosaurs was not an end. It was a pause, a breath, before the earth spoke again. The world after the extinction was changed, scarred, quieter than before. The great dinosaurs were gone, and in their absence, the earth seemed to breathe differently. Forests regrew slowly, rivers wound through open floodplains, and skies cleared of soot and dust. Into this quieter stage stepped creatures that had once been small, hidden, fragile mammals. For millions of years they had lived in shadows, burrowing, scurrying, feeding in the night. Now, with the giants gone, they began to expand, to experiment, to fill the open spaces left behind. In the Paleocene and Eocene epochs, beginning around 66 million years ago, mammals spread into every niche. Some remained small, clinging to the safety of the undergrowth. Others grew larger, bolder, shaping forms no one had seen before. From these early experiments would come elephants, whales, horses, primates, and eventually us. But in those first ages, the earth belonged to new kinds of monsters, strange and unexpected. One of the most remarkable changes came in the seas. Fossils from Pakistan and India reveal the story of Ambulocetus, the walking whale. About 3 meters long, it looked like a cross between a crocodile and a mammal, with strong legs for paddling in rivers and long jaws for snapping fish. Its bones tell us it could swim powerfully, but also walk on land. A creature caught between two worlds. From animals like this, whales would evolve, returning to the oceans as giants far larger than any reptile before them. Imagine the quiet shallows where Ambulocetus slipped into the water, its body swaying side to side. The first whisper of songs that would one day fill oceans. On land, other lineages swelled to monstrous size. In South America, the ground sloth's megatherium grew to over 6 meters in length, their claws long and curved, their bulk towering as they stood on hind legs to strip branches. Fossil skeletons in Argentina show their vast rib cages, their claws preserved like curved scythes. They were gentle herbivores, yet their size alone made them imposing, lumbering through forests like slow-moving walls of fur and bone. There were predators, too, filling the gap left by the vanished tyrants. In South America, the terror birds Ferruchracid stood 3 meters tall, their beaks sharp and hooked, their legs built for running. Their fossils, found in Argentina and Florida, show enormous skulls more than 1/2 meter long, jaws built to crush bone. Picture one striding across an open plain, feathers bristling, eyes fixed forward, its call carrying low and deep through the grasslands. Even in North America and Europe, mammals were stretching into new forms. Androsarchus, known from a skull more than 80 centimeters long, was one of the largest land predators of the Eocene. Its jaw was armed with crushing teeth, its body likely massive and muscular, though known from only fragments. Its very existence hints at a time when mammals, too, grew monstrous, challenging the image of quiet survivors. Close your eyes and imagine that world. Forests alive with new voices, birds, descended from dinosaurs calling from branches, mammals moving boldly across leaf-strewn ground. In the distance, a giant sloth rears up to strip a tree, its breath slow and heavy. Across the river, a terror bird waits, feathers rippling in the breeze. And beneath the water, something stirs Ambulocetus, its eyes breaking the surface, jaws snapping on a fish before it slides back into the depths. The fossils of these first mammalian ages are scattered across continents. In Argentina, massive skeletons of sloths tower in museums. In Florida, giant bird skulls rest in glass cases. In Pakistan, the rocks of ancient rivers preserve the bones of whales, just beginning to leave land behind. Together, they tell us of a world reborn, strange and experimental, filled with forms both familiar and alien. The dinosaurs had ended in fire, but life continued. And in the silence after, mammals rose not in haste, but in steady steps, spreading, changing, testing. The age of mammals had begun, and the earth would never be the same. The oceans that had once belonged to ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and mosasaurs were quiet after the extinction. But silence never lasts for long. Slowly, from the edges of rivers and coastlines, a new kind of creature began to enter the water. They were mammals, born of land, yet drawn back into the seas. Over millions of years, they transformed, their bodies reshaped, their limbs stretched into flippers, their nostrils sliding back along their skulls. These were the ancestors of whales, the walkers who became giants of the deep. The story begins with Pakiscetus, known from fossils in Pakistan, dating back about 50 million years. At first glance, it looked like a dog or wolf. Its legs sturdy, its body built for walking, yet its skull held secrets the shape of its ear bones. Specialized for hearing underwater, showed it was already tied to the sea. Fossil evidence places it along ancient shorelines, hunting fish in shallows, dipping between two worlds. From Pakiscetus came Ambulocetus, the walking whale, about 3 meters long. It had strong, crocodile-like jaws and robust limbs. Fossil skeletons reveal a creature that could paddle with its feet, sliding into rivers and ambushing prey like a modern crocodile. Imagine it resting on a bank, then with a sudden lunge, splashing into water, jaws snapping shut on a fish. It still walked clumsily on land, but in water, it moved with grace, the first step toward a life fully aquatic. As millions of years passed, these proto-whales changed further. Rhodhocetus, another fossil from Pakistan, had shorter limbs and a long, muscular tail, evidence that swimming was becoming its primary way of life. Its feet bore webbing, its spine grew more flexible. It no longer belonged entirely on land, nor entirely in water. It was in transition, reshaping itself with each generation. And then, forms like Basilosaurus appeared, stretching more than 15 meters long. Fossils from Egypt's Wadi al-Haytham, the Valley of Whales, show complete skeletons of these giants. Their bodies serpentine, their tails powerful, their limbs reduced to tiny, useless legs. They were fully aquatic, gliding through seas once ruled by reptiles, now claimed by mammals. Imagine one rising to the surface, its long body rolling in waves, its jaws opening wide to seize fish or even smaller whales. The name Basilosaurus means king lizard, given before scientists realized it was not a reptile at all, but a mammal, the ancestor of modern whales. Close your eyes and hear their world. The sea is calm, waves rolling softly against warm shores. Beneath, the water is alive with motion. A school of fish darts past, scales glinting in dim light. Then a shadow rises. A massive shape glides overhead, tail sweeping side to side. A single bubble trail escapes as Basilosaurus exhales. Then it lunges, jaws snapping, silence broken by the rush of water. Around it, smaller whales swim, their bodies sleeker, more modern in form, already learning the paths that their descendants would follow for millions of years. The fossils of these walking whales tell us more than bones alone. In Basilosaurus, paleontologists found tiny hind limbs, preserved reminders of their land-dwelling past. In Ambulocetus, isotopes in teeth reveal they lived in freshwater and saltwater both, straddling river and sea. Each fossil is a chapter, each layer of rock a page in the story of transformation. Today, whales fill the oceans with songs low, resonant, carrying for miles beneath the waves. But those songs began with footsteps, with creatures that once walked on land, that carried their mammalian heritage into the depths. The greatest giants of the sea were not born there. They returned, and in the hush of that thought, imagine them still. The walkers turned swimmers, the swimmers turned singers, their shadows vast beneath endless waves. After the seas filled with new giants, the land to found its predators. In South America, long isolated from other continents, a new kind of hunter appeared. They did not roar like lions or stalk like tigers. They did not bear claws like dinosaurs or teeth like wolves. Instead, they strode on powerful legs, their bodies feathered, their wings small and flightless. Atop their shoulders rose heads armed with enormous, hooked beak stools for striking, tearing, and crushing. These were the terror birds. Fossils tell us they belonged to a group called the Ferocious, flightless predators that dominated South America for millions of years after the extinction of the dinosaurs. Some species were modest in size, no larger than modern cranes. Others, like Kalenkin, grew over 3 meters tall, with skulls more than 70 centimeters long, the largest bird skulls ever discovered. Their beaks curved downward into sharp hooks, strong enough to drive into bone, to kill with a single blow. Imagine one now. The plains stretched beneath a bright sun, grasses swaying in the wind. A herd of small mammals grazes at a distance, unaware of the shape that strides across the land. The terror bird moves swiftly, its steps long and rhythmic. It does not flap its wings. It does not need to. It lowers its head, eyes fixed, beak gleaming. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, it charges. Its neck swings downward like an axe, the beak striking with precision. Silence follows, broken only by the rustle of feathers as it straightens. Prey clutched in its hooked jaws. South America was their kingdom, and for nearly 60 million years they ruled it. Fossil sites in Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil preserve their bone skulls with cavernous eye sockets, leg bones dense and powerful, claws sharp as daggers. They filled the role that large mammalian carnivores held elsewhere, becoming apex predators in their ecosystem. Some were fast runners, chasing prey across open plains. Others ambushed, striking from cover. Their diversity was wide, their dominance long. For smaller mammals, living alongside them was a life of constant vigilance. The terror birds hunted early horses, rodents, and even other birds. Their beaks worked not only to kill, but to tear prey into pieces, shaking their heads violently to rip flesh from bone. Modern studies of their skull mechanics suggest their bite was not strong like a crocodile's, but swift and precise, relying on speed and neck power rather than brute force. Close your eyes and hear their world. The wind stirs tall grasses. Insects buzz low to the ground. Then, a low booming call echoes across the plain, deep and resonant, carrying for kilometers. It is the voice of a terror bird, announcing its presence, or perhaps claiming territory. The herd ahead stiffens, ears twitching, and then they scatter, hooves pounding the earth. From behind rises the shadow of feathers and beak, long legs striking the ground in pursuit. The plain is alive with motion, predator and prey locked in rhythm. They lasted until only a few million years ago, when changes in climate and the arrival of mammalian predators from North America ended their reign. But for a long time, they were the monsters of the land birds that could not fly, yet ruled with speed and precision. Their fossils in museums feel almost unreal. The skulls are so large, so sharp, that it is difficult to imagine them as birds at all. Yet feathers once covered their bodies. Their eyes watched with avian intensity. Their steps echoed with the sound of talons striking earth. They were real, and for millions of years they were supreme. And as you drift into their world, you can still feel it, the hush of tall grass, the sudden rush of feathers, the strike of a beak like a blade. The terror birds walk again, silent hunters of forgotten plains. The world cooled. Glaciers crept across continents, carving valleys, reshaping rivers, grinding stone into dust. Grasslands spread wide beneath cold skies, and with them came herds of great herbivores, mammoths, bison, camels, horses. Where herds moved, predators followed, and among them rose one of the most iconic hunters of all time, the saber-toothed cat. Its most famous representative was Smilodon, a predator whose name means knife tooth. Its fossils, found in abundance at the La Brea tar pits in California, reveal a cat heavier and more muscular than any lion, with limbs built for power rather than speed. Its forelegs were thick and strong, designed to grapple and hold, while its jaws opened wider than those of any living big cat, and from its upper jaw curved canines nearly 20 centimeters long, blades of bone sharp enough to pierce the throats of giant prey. Imagine one crouched in tall grass. The wind is cold, carrying the scent of mammoths moving in the distance. The cat's muscles ripple beneath its fur, its breath steaming in the air. Its head lowers, ears flatten, eyes fix forward. A bison strays to far from the herd. With a sudden burst of power, the Smilodon leaps, its forelegs wrapping around the prey, dragging it down with weight and strength. Its jaws open wide, sabers glinting, before plunging into the neck. Silence follows, broken only by the sound of breathing, of struggle fading to stillness. The La Brea tar pits preserve not only bones, but entire dramas of the Ice Age. Animals, lured by the promise of water, became trapped in sticky tar, their struggles attracting predators, who in turn became trapped themselves. Thousands of Smilodon skeletons have been recovered, alongside mammoths, dire wolves, camels, and more. From these remains, scientists reconstruct a world where death was common, but life thrived in astonishing abundance. The sabers themselves were both weapon and burden. Their length made them delicate. A misplaced strike could break them, Yet their jaws and neck muscles were adapted to drive them into soft tissue, to kill quickly once prey was restrained. They were not built for long chases like cheetahs, but for ambush, for sudden power, for precision. Close your eyes and hear that world. The crunch of frost beneath hooves, the distant trumpet of mammoths, the low growl of a cat unseen, waiting, then the sudden rush of movement, the thud of bodies colliding, the sharp cry of prey as saber teeth find their mark, and then stillness again. The silence of predators feeding in the shadow of glaciers. Smilodon was not the only saber-toothed cat. Across the world, in Europe, Africa, and Asia, other lineages evolved their own long canines, converging on the same deadly design. Fossils of Homotherium, the scimitar-toothed cat, show animals with shorter sabers and longer legs. Hunters adapted for chasing across open plains. Their remains, found from Texas to Siberia, remind us that the Ice Age was not the reign of a single predator, but of many, each carving its place in the frozen world. They lived alongside humans, too. Cave paintings in Europe may depict large cats with faint saber-like teeth, suggesting our ancestors saw them with their own eyes, feared them, perhaps even fought them. To live in the Ice Age was to share the land not only with mammoths and bison, but with predators whose eyes glowed in the dark, whose teeth curved like knives in the night. Today their bones lie silent, jaws parted, sabers gleaming beneath glass. They seem both familiar and alien, cats but not cats. Predators shaped by a time harsher than ours, and as you drift into their memory, you feel their presence, still the heavy breath in cold air, the sudden rush from shadows, the gleam of ivory in moonlight. The saber-toothed cats are gone, but the chill of their world lingers, carried in fossils, in tar, in whispers across frozen ground. The Ice Age was a land of giants. Across the frozen plains and tundras moved creatures whose very shapes seemed carved by the cold. Massive bodies covered in hair, tusks curling like ivory crescents, trunks lifting into the wind. These were the mammoths and mastodons, the last of the great proboscideans, whose shadows stretched long against snowy horizons. Mammoths were close relatives of modern elephants, but adapted for harsh climates. The most famous, the woolly mammoth, carried long shaggy coats, underlain with thick layers of fat, and smaller ears to conserve heat. Their tusks grew in elegant spirals, some reaching more than 4 meters in length, curving upward in arcs like frozen waves. Fossils of mammoths are found across Europe, Asia, and North America, preserved not only in bone, but sometimes in flesh, locked in Siberian permafrost, where their bodies remain astonishingly intact, hair and skin still clinging after tens of thousands of years. Mastodons, though similar in appearance, were different. Their teeth tell the story. While mammoths grazed on grasses, their flat molars grinding tough stalks, mastodons fed on leaves, twigs, and forest plants. Their teeth were crowned with cusps, better suited to chewing branches. Fossils from North America reveal herds that wandered through forests rather than open tundra, their presence quieter, more hidden beneath trees. Close your eyes and see them in life. A herd of woolly mammoths crosses a snowy plain, their breath steaming in the cold. Calves walk close to their mothers, shielded by towering legs and swinging tusks. The ground trembles faintly with each step, the air filled with low rumbles, deep sounds too low for human ears to hear, vibrations that carry through the earth to other herds miles away. In a nearby forest, mastodons browse quietly, trunks curling around branches, snapping them with soft cracks, their tusks brushing bark as they strip leaves. Their remains connect us to them in haunting ways. In Siberia, frozen carcasses have been found with food still in their mouths, their bodies locked instantly by cold. In North America, spear points embedded in bones tell of human hunters who faced them on icy plains. In ancient campsites, ivory tusks were carved into tools, shelters, and art. The mammoths were not only beasts of the Ice Age, they were companions, challenges, and symbols for the people who lived beside them. The end of their story is written in layers of bone and soil. As the Ice Age ended, glaciers retreated, climates warmed, and grasslands shrank. Human hunting added further pressure. One by one, the great herds dwindled. By 10,000 years ago, mammoths and mastodons had vanished from most of the world. Only small populations of mammoths survived on Wrangel Island, off the coast of Siberia, until as recently as 4,000 years ago, a time when humans were already building pyramids. Imagine it, the last mammoths walking windswept shores, their calls echoing in a world that had already moved on. Today their bones rise from melting permafrost, tusks curling upward like frozen waves of time. Museums display their towering skeletons, their curved ivory, their shaggy outlines reconstructed in fur. They feel at once distant and close, creatures of myth and yet of memory, their shadows still lingering across tundra and forest. The Ice Age was shaped by their footsteps. Where they walked, grasses bent, forests parted, rivers shifted. Their herds carried sound, weight, and life across landscapes vast and cold. And as you drift into their world, you can still hear it, the low rumble of trunks, the crunch of frost beneath massive feet, the hush of snow falling across their backs as they move slowly through the silence of winter. In the cold twilight of the Ice Age, caves were more than shelter. They were sanctuaries, traps, and graves. Within their dark mouths lived beasts that loomed large in the imaginations of early humans. Creatures whose shadows flickered in firelight, whose bones still lie in hidden chambers today. Among them were the cave bears and the cave hyenas, titans of the underground world. The cave bear, Ursus spelaeus, was larger than any bear alive today. Males could stand more than 3 meters tall on their hind legs. weighing up to a metric ton. Their skulls were broad, their jaws powerful, their bodies adapted to the cold. Unlike modern grizzlies, they were largely herbivorous, feeding on roots, berries, and plants. Though their size alone would have made them formidable, fossils across Europe, Austria, Germany, France show that they spent winters in caves, hibernating in clusters. Whole caves have been found filled with their bones. Thousands of skeletons layered by centuries of lives lived and lost. Now imagine such a cave. The air is cool, the walls damp, the floor littered with bones. In the darkness, a massive bear lies curled, breath slow, heart steady. Outside, snow falls across the mouth of the cave. For months it sleeps, and when it wakes, the spring air stirs as it lumbers forth, heavy and strong, seeking food in thawing valleys. Alongside them lived the cave hyenas, larger than their modern descendants, with powerful jaws capable of cracking mammoth bones. They hunted in packs, working together to bring down prey or to drive competitors from kills. Fossils from Europe and Asia show dens littered with bones, dragged into caves to be consumed. The marks of their teeth are still visible, deep grooves carved into bones of horses, bison, even young mammoths. Close your eyes and picture it. A winter's night on the steppe. The moon glints off frozen rivers. A herd of horses huddles against the cold. Then, movement, a pack of hyenas approaches. Their calls sharp and eerie, echoing across the plain. They circle, closing in, their jaws snapping, breath steaming in the air. The herd breaks, hooves pounding the earth, but the hyenas follow, relentless, their laughter carrying into the night. These caves were shared not only with beasts, but with humans. The walls of Chauvet and other Paleolithic caves preserve paintings, lines of ochre and charcoal depicting lions, mammoths, and bears. To the people who made them, the caves were sacred spaces, filled with power, danger, and memory. The bones of cave bears sometimes appear arranged, placed deliberately, as though early humans regarded them not just as animals, but as spirits, forces to be honored or feared. The end of these great beasts came with the close of the Ice Age. As climates warmed, forests returned, prey shifted, and human hunting increased. The cave bear vanished around 24,000 years ago. The cave hyena, once spread across continents, followed soon after. Yet their bones remain in hidden chambers, their skulls staring from the dark, their teeth marked by time. Imagine yourself there now, a cave deep in the mountains, torchlight flickering on walls, smoke curling upward. Shadows stretch across painted lions and mammoths. At your feet lie bones, thick and heavy, jaws gaping, claws curved. The silence is deep, but you feel the presence of what once lived here, the breath of bears, the laughter of hyenas, the whispers of humans who painted by firelight. The caves of the Ice Age were not empty. They were filled with monsters of fur and bone, with hunters and The Ice Age nights were filled with sound hoofbeats of bison crossing frozen plains, the distant trumpeting of mammoths, the low rumble of predators in pursuit. Among the most haunting voices was the howl of the dire wolf, a call that echoed across valleys and stirred unease in every creature that heard it. Canis dirus, the dire wolf, was one of the largest wolves to ever live, heavier and more robust than modern grey wolves. It weighed up to 70 kilograms, its jaws broad and strong, its teeth thick and suited for crushing bone. Fossils from the La Brea tar pits in California have yielded thousands of dire wolf skeletons, their remains caught in tar while scavenging trapped prey. These bones reveal not only their size, but their lives as pack hunters, social animals that thrived on cooperation. Imagine the hunt. The air is bitter, breath steams in clouds, snow crunches beneath padded paws. A herd of horses flees across open ground, hooves striking frost-hardened soil. Behind them, the dire wolves run in formation, their steps rhythmic, their pace relentless. One lunges forward, teeth snapping at flanks. Another cuts from the side. Together they harry and weaken their prey until, at last, one stumbles and the pack swarms with precision, their teeth finding flesh, their growls rolling like thunder. The La Brea fossils hold more than bones. Some show signs of healed injuries, proof that dire wolves cared for injured pack members, feeding them until they recovered. Others show broken teeth worn down by gnawing bone, a sign of desperate times when meat was scarce and every scrap was consumed. In their packs, dire wolves found strength, but in hard years, even unity could not guarantee survival. Their world was filled with rivals. Saber-toothed cats prowled the same plains. American lions, larger than any lion alive today, stalked the same herds. Hyenas, now vanished from the Americas, cracked bones in dens. Each predator tested the other, competing for the same prey, watching, waiting, clashing when opportunity demanded. In such a world, size and cooperation gave dire wolves an edge, yet also drew them into constant conflict. Close your eyes and step into that night. The wind cuts across your face, carrying the distant cries of prey. Then, closer, the sound of paws striking ground, a rhythm steady and unbroken. You hear low growls, then a howl long, mournful, rising into the dark. It is not a single voice, but many, weaving together in harmony, the sound of a pack.